Welcome, welcome, welcome back to From Middle Class to Millions. It is Thanksgiving. Can you believe it? That's what it's going to be the day that this drops. And I hope that you're full and thankful and have the opportunity to spend time with your loved ones today and all weekend, because there's a lot that we can give thanks for. And although the world is difficult and it feels very stressful at times, I really hope that you had the opportunity to look around with friends, with family, with all the loved ones in your life, and to break bread and share a good time. Okay? Because, life is short and we got to make the most of it. And I think that every single Thanksgiving that passes, every single opportunity that we have to spend time with our loved ones is really what's valuable. And so if we can figure out a way that we can do this more often, and not only on the holidays, but whenever it's possible, I think it'll make us all much happier. So knowing that it's Thanksgiving today, I want to give thanks. I want to give thanks to you, and I'm going to explain why I want to give thanks to you. Not that you need to have an explanation for being thankful, but I think it's important for people to know why there's gratitude, that people are sharing that gratitude with them. And part of this gratitude that I'm sharing with you, it has to do with the fact that I have been doing this podcast for a year. And it took me so long to get this podcast up and running, because I thought, well, do people really want to hear about this? Do they want to hear about money? I mean, aren't there enough people out there who are in this income range that know what to do with money? And even though I was working with tons of people who were highly educated, who had really powerful positions, who made really good money, they were still confused, and they still had questions, and they still felt behind, and they still wanted to know more about personal finance, particularly for those who were in this kind of middle space. I mean, there are a lot of folks who talk about getting out of debt and how to cut expenses and how to budget. There are a lot of people in that space. But then there's also a lot of people that are able to have wealth managers who already have 250 plus net worth in assets, and who already are at that stage where they're just looking for their very healthy net worth to grow. But they're the folks who were like me, who were in the middle, who didn't come from a wealthy background, who didn't know whom to turn to ask questions about investing, I'm from the time when the stock market was like all on paper, and nobody around me knew what the hell any of that stuff meant. And nobody really invested in the stock market that I knew of. And even if I did know them, they were so far removed from me that it was odd and awkward to even consider asking them questions. And so I know that if I didn't get a hold of the information, if I didn't start to chart a course for myself, I would never have gotten to the point of financial freedom. I would never have gotten to the point where I could retire early. I would never have gotten to the point where I would have amassed multiple millions. And I would have never gotten to the point that I would be able to teach other people how to do the same thing. And I think that is just, as much as people believe, and I believe that there's so many people out here doing this, I think that the message continues and needs to continue to be spread, because we just don't talk about money enough. We don't share enough about how to become financially independent. We don't really know what that means. We don't really see the average, quote unquote, everyday middle class person becoming wealthy. We see people who are severely struggling and who are poor, and then we see billionaires. And everybody in between, good luck. And I just think that I knew I was struggling to get information. I was struggling to get access. I was struggling to figure out, hey, how do I get out of the middle and the work until 65 and just have enough and maybe go on one vacation a year if I'm lucky and not have a ton of debt and live a really abundant life. I couldn't figure it out, and I set out to do just that. And my whole goal right now is to continue to teach and share and empower people to do exactly what I'm talking about, because I knew that I didn't want to work until I was 65, but I didn't know how I was going to make that happen. I didn't know that it wasn't going to take me until 65 to maybe become a millionaire. And I didn't know that there is actually a way to get there that isn't going to take 40 years or what seems like a lifetime. And I want to release those secrets. And that is what I do every single day. And this podcast is just another opportunity to do that. And that's why I started it, even though I was hesitant, even though I was reluctant, even though I was like, there are a lot of people out there talking about money. They weren't talking about it in this way. They weren't talking about it to people like me. They weren't talking about it to people who, yes, keep the lights on, yes, pay their bills, yes, went to college, yes, are making a good salary, but no, don't know how to get to millionaire status. And no, they couldn't go to a wealth advisor because they didn't have enough money. And no, even if you went to a wealth advisor or a financial advisor, the intermediary step, you didn't know what the heck they were doing because you didn't have the language or the confidence to talk to them about what they were doing with your money. And I thought that was just not good enough. And so this is where we are now. This is why I started the podcast a year ago. And I want to say thank you. Thank you if you've been listening to episode after episode. Thank you if you've been listening to my story. Thank you if you've been listening to the stories of my clients who have been incredibly successful. And this is just another way that they are demonstrating their success. It's the thing that they didn't understand, they didn't get, they needed to pay attention to, and that was kind of bothering them because they knew that they should be paying attention to this, but they didn't know where to go. And for all of the folks who have come to me and said, I've been looking for someone like you, someone who can help me understand where my money's going, how my money works, how I can get it to grow, how I can allow that wiggle room in my finances so I can do the things I love and use my time the way that I want to use my time. That is why I show up. And that is why I started this podcast. And I'm so glad that I did. So I want to say thank you for listening because it's been a year since I launched this podcast, and I love coming on here every week. I really, really do. I like talking, and I love geeking out about money, and I love it when people feel so good when they've gotten control of their finances, and it's not this big, scary behemoth. So I really, really want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for sticking by. I want to thank you for your comments. I want to thank you for your ratings. I want to thank you for sharing this podcast with other people. And I want to thank you for the ideas. A lot of folks have said to me, can you talk about this? Can you talk about that? And I love that feedback because it gives me an idea of what you really want to hear, because I know there's vulnerability there when it comes to money. And so I can hold space for that, and I respect that, and I understand that, and I've been there, and I'm still there. The only thing that differs now with me and where I am on my journey is now I am not reluctant or embarrassed anymore to ask questions. In fact, I will ask all the questions in the spaces that I'm in because I want to learn. And so I really encourage you to continue listening, continue asking the questions, continue showing up for yourself and for the people around you. Because once they start to see what you're doing, how you're living, how you're showing up, people are going to ask questions. They want to know how you're making it happen for yourself and what was the change maker. So keep doing it. I am so thankful for all of you. I really, really, really appreciate you. And it just warms my heart to know that you're listening and that you trust what I'm saying and how I can help you along your journey. Now, I also want to add a big piece to what's been going on with me this year. Like I said, I started this podcast. I really wanted to share this information about money and this journey that I'm on and the journey that my clients are on, and really the real reason why it was important to me to build wealth. I know I've shared with you guys over many episodes that my parents were immigrants and they didn't know anything about the stock market. They didn't know anything about investing, but they had taken their big risk, which was emigrating to a new country and furthering their education and buying a home. I mean, those are pretty big risks, right? Especially when you don't really have any other family around and you're deciding that it's time for you to do something different so you could build a better life for yourself. And for a lot of us, it doesn't mean that we're going to have to leave the country or that we're going to have to get yet another degree or, some of us already own homes. But it does mean that we're going to have to do something a little bit different in order to build the life that we truly want. And what I noticed with my parents is because they didn't have the knowledge base when it came to investing, they did the best that they could. And I am so thankful for them because they gave me a really, really great life. And I know I talk about sometimes, I didn't learn this at the dinner table. I wasn't one of the kids who knew, how to start investing. Nobody was building up a portfolio for me, similar to like what I'm doing for my kids. Like they weren't doing that. And not because they had, ill intent. It's simply because they didn't know. But they did provide me with a wonderful life. My parents are fantastic people, and I love them dearly. And I thank them for the foundation that I got, right? The curiosity that I had, and the fact that, I saw them work really hard. I saw them work until retirement age. I saw that they didn't think of anything else but to work until retirement. And that provided me with the impetus to say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And I am thankful to them for that because they did that because they had to. They did that because they didn't know of any other options. They didn't know anybody who retired early. That sounds crazy. And I only know a handful of people personally in my life who've done the same. So it hasn't changed all that much. But what I have noticed, and I do thank my parents for, is their incredible work ethic and their ability to support me while I take chances. Even if many times they were like, what the hell is she doing? They were very supportive. And so now as I'm watching them and they're aging and they need more support, and I see that and I'm doing all that I can, and I continue to do more, but I'm doing it from afar. And I didn't expect that it was going to be this grueling in terms of the level of support that they would need, in terms of the amount that they would need. And it's been really emotionally heavy for me. And it kind of slowed me down, right? It slowed me down in a way where I needed to reevaluate what I could do. You know what I mean? Like I only have so much energy and I really needed to think about where I was redirecting that energy because I'm in the actual sandwich generation. I have aging parents and I have children who aren't young, but they're still dependents and they still need me in some capacity. One's still in the home, one isn't in the home, one is away at school. And so I'm constantly being pulled in various directions from both ends. And I'm not saying this because, I resent the fact that my parents need me or my children need me, but it's a fact. And I know that, I have clients who are either in a similar situation or they know that situation's coming. And I have to tell you, it is tough. And it kind of snuck up on me. I'm not gonna lie. It snuck up on me. And for the first time ever, I had to like slow down. I had to scale back. I had to say no to projects that I would normally like accept without any hesitation. I had to take a good look at the number of clients that I could manage, at any given time, in any given month. I was traveling constantly to see my parents. And I felt like the work that I had started to build with the money message and with wealth builders, I just felt like I wasn't getting it out there as much because my focus was so divided. And I was doing all of the things trying to keep this afloat, but at the same time, making sure that, because it was my choice, to support my parents to the fullest without physically being with them all the time. And so at one point I had to take a tremendous look, like a tremendous step back, because I looked at what I was doing and all of the opportunities that were presented to me and what was my caseload and capacity was. And I had to say, no, you're going to have to pause and reduce all of the things that you're currently doing. And that's hard for someone like me because I've never done that. Like I've never had to take time out and say no to things because I've always been like, oh no, I can fit it in. I can do it. I can do all the things. I can keep going. I can keep going. And when I realized that, look, no, lady, you can't do it. All right. You can't do all of the things. Not if you want to be there for your parents and not if you want to be there for your kids, be there for yourself. You can't do it all. You can't do it all at this rate and at this capacity. And so I had to take a step back. And I realized that I could take a step back. And not because, I'm this special unicorn or because I'm lucky. And it's not even because I'm, really good with money. It's because of the decisions that I made many, many, many years ago. That's why I was able to take a step back. Because I had built a financial foundation before I truly knew that I would need that foundation. And I did it in two ways. I mean, one of the ways that I'll tell you about quick and dirty is once I learned, about buying assets and investing in real estate and investing in vending machines and building the systems and the organizational skills that I needed to build wealth. Well, I was doing that. And once I learned that, I did it for my parents, right? They didn't understand anything. Like I said, I didn't grow up knowing about the markets and how it worked and investments and stuff. But once I understood it, and because of course they trust me, I was like, let me help you. And my parents were probably in their 60s when I was helping them with their finances. Because again, we didn't talk money. All right. I didn't know what they made. I didn't know what they had. I didn't know what they owned apart from their house. I didn't know anything. Right. So to be able to get into these conversations with them and then to get them to actually invest and to understand what creating assets would mean for them was remarkable. But it also help me today because those assets that were created for them are for them. If I need more care for them, they're there. If I need more assistance in taking care of what they need, those assets that I created for them are there. And those same assets that I created for myself are here to support me now. Like I was preparing for a season that I didn't even know was coming. I didn't even know that I would need those assets so that I could take a break at this point to go and help my parents more. I didn't know that I was creating assets for them that would truly support them. I thought it was a great idea. I just wanted to share the information, right? Like I told everybody that I knew, hey, this is something that you can do. This is how you can build a wealth for yourself. But I didn't know that I was creating this foundation for this time. I didn't know that this time was coming. Right? I didn't know that I would need to take a break and there would be less income, but I'd still be able to pay my bills without any stress. I didn't know that, that I would be able to take a break and my kids' college would still be taken care of. I didn't know that I could step back from my business and still live a really full life. I didn't know that my other kid who wanted to do a program this past summer in another city, that we literally could pick up and go to another city, stay in an Airbnb for an entire month, set up a whole life over there in that other city, and maintain the household in our hometown. I didn't know that I was preparing for this. I didn't know that I was preparing for this season. And I think that's really important because a lot of the times when we're talking about building wealth, people are seeing images of someone drinking champagne on a yacht and vacations and private jets and cars and bags and all of these things. And yes, those things are amazing too, don't get me wrong. But nothing hits home as hard as the freedom that I had to say, I gotta take a step back and nothing will fall apart. That freedom to show up for people you love, like my parents, the freedom to say, okay, press pause and the whole world isn't going to collapse, or just to pivot and readjust your life because it's very chaotic, or rest. Sometimes it's rest. You can rest, you can replenish, you can rejuvenate, you can grieve what's going on, right? And you can have the space to care and not worry about whether everything is going to continue running and everything isn't going to fall apart. To me, that's the most important thing. That's the real flex to me. That's the true definition of luxury. That's wealth. That to me is wealth. So when they talk about, oh, you're going to thank your younger self. Yeah, you're right. You're damn right. I am thanking my younger self. That younger self is the one that was preparing for something they didn't even know was coming in this form and didn't know when it was coming. I didn't know that I was going to be the one supporting my aging parents. I didn't even think of that stuff at that time. Call me naive. I didn't even think about it. I didn't know I'd have to scale back. I didn't know that I would be sometimes so emotionally wrecked that I would just have to shut down for a period of time. I didn't know I was preparing for that, but yet still I did. I built this foundation for this very reason, even though I didn't know I was doing it. So yeah, I thank my younger self. Hell yeah. This is what it's about. This is what the podcast is about. I love a fancy thing. Don't get me wrong. I love luxury. There's nothing wrong with that. But this podcast, my coaching, the reason why I show up with my clients and I'm so geeked and excited is because I am helping them get freedom. You make different decisions when there's money available to you. I don't care what anybody says. I would not be able to do this in this capacity if I wasn't covered financially. I wouldn't. And I know many of you are thinking this as well, particularly those who can see into the future better than I could, that, yeah, your parents may need your assistance and you want to be there for them, especially those of you who right now are in the thick of it. And you're like, what the heck? I want you to know that it is not too late. You can set yourself up by building this foundation, building upon the foundation, getting the systems so that you can take care of not only yourself, but the people that you love and care about. I know that it's hard sometimes to figure out, okay, how do you do this? Where do you start? What do you do? How do you know what I mean? Especially if you're right now sandwiched in between your kids and your parents. I know it's hard to see clearly and see the light, but that's exactly when you need to reach out. That is exactly when you need to reach out. Because the blind spots, the things that you're doing that may be making the situation a little bit more difficult, the confusion and the chaos, I can weed through that. I can help you. I can help you weed through that so that things can run smoothly in the background. So yeah, there are a lot of you who think, well, I can't do this. I have too much debt. I can't do this. I don't know anything about investing. I can't do this. I'm so focused on helping my kids. I can't do this because my mother needs this, that, or the next thing. You can do it. You can do it. It's hard to see it. I get it. And that's why I had to take the step back. And I got help. I surely did. I got help. That's what this community is about. And that's why I started off this podcast thanking you. Because you're here with me. You're listening to me. And then you'll tell me about the things that are working for you. And that, to me, does wonders for when I'm feeling down and wondering, is any of this worth it? But then I see I have this opportunity to take a step back without financial collapse. And I show up again every single week. Every single week. Because I know when the money's everywhere and you're confused and you don't know exactly where things are, it's overwhelming. And I can help you with that in 30 days. And I can help you take your 6-figure income and help you build a 7-figure net worth. I did not, and I want to repeat, I did not have this huge exit from my company and suddenly I became a millionaire. No, it was strategic. I had a stepwise plan. Yeah, it took time. It wasn't a get rich quick scheme, but it isn't a 40-year plan either. And that's key. And when I locked my systems in place, which is what I help my clients do, then we take off. That's when it starts to grow. That's when we put that 6-figure income to work so that you can truly build wealth. And while you're doing that, you're gaining your time. You're gaining the ability to take care of yourself and your loved ones. And you're reducing your cortisol levels because you finally have clarity with your money. This has been a tough year for me. And I know for many of you, for very many different reasons, you too are having some tough goes. That's okay. That's why we have community. That's why we have understanding, and that's why we have care. So if you are in this stage of life right now where you're sandwiched in, nothing, it sounds like viced in sometimes. I'm not going to lie. Sandwich generation, I feel like it's a vice, for God's sakes. But anyway, if you're in that stage and you know that, look, I you know, I got to get this organized, and you don't believe that this is the time, you're wrong. Sorry, I'm going to tell you straight out, you're wrong. There's no better time. There was a better time, but that's past. So let's make today the time when you decide that you're going to take control of this aspect of your life, the actual aspect you can control. Thank you. Once again, I hope you had a wonderful day with your family and your friends. And I will be back again next week, and it'll be December. In the meantime, click the link in the show notes and book a call with me today. Take care.